Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today's Monday, October 11th. Hope everyone had a great weekend, and thanks for tuning in to today's Grand Solar Minimum News Update. Let's get started with some space weather news. Right now, our solar wind speeds are coming in at 390.6 kilometers per second with a density of 7.4. Right now, the KPNC is sitting at a 2, but earlier it did reach 4, and we will get to that here just in a quick second. But I want to talk about 3 active regions right now for sunspots: AR 2883, AR 2884, and AR 2882. Now, AR 2882 is the big one that's right in front of you. We are at sunspot number 38. And I will tell you that AR 2882 is bearing most of the responsibility for that number. That is the sunspot that did produce the M-class solar flare, actually a C-class on the day prior to it, and then we saw an M1.6 solar flare, and that has already begun to impact Earth's magnetic field. This morning we saw the increase of solar wind, and I believe that triggered a few things as well, and I will get to that too here just quickly. I want to show you something though before we leave the space weather station. Cosmic radiation dosage rates are at a 9.5%. Now folks, as many of you who are following this channel, we're waiting for that terminator event, and again, that's not an extinction event. It's just a marker on the sun's magnetic field and an indicator of how much activity we'll see in the next solar cycle. Right now, if it would have happened right at 10 years, that would have indicated a very high activity solar cycle. Well, April of 2021 marked 10 years. Now, some are saying that the solar or terminator event has not yet happened, and we are continuing to wait for these numbers. I have to kind of believe that as we continue to see cosmic radiation rates still at the 9.5% range. Now, we have peaked higher than that, but considering where we are in the solar cycle, pulling out of this deep minimum that we just had, to hang on to 9.5% cosmic radiation dosage rates this far out from the minimum, and we're upticking towards a solar max for this cycle. Now, that doesn't mean the solar max for this cycle is going to cancel out grand solar minimum. Remember, grand solar minimum is a period of low solar activity, and that period usually lasts anywhere from 30 to 70 years. So in most cases, 3 to 4 solar cycles, which run about 11 years, is the average grand solar minimum. So even though if solar cycle 25 slightly outperforms its forecast, again, it does not derail the grand solar minimum. Folks, we're still seeing solar minimum conditions at a time of the cycle where things have definitely jumped up in sunspot activity, but it's taken so many active regions on the sun to produce a smooth sunspot number of 80 or 90 that these are still weak minor sunspots. Take away 2882, we'd probably be looking at sunspot number 22 right now or lower. TCI, that's the Thermosphere Climate Index, that is the very, very top atmosphere of Earth. It's still very cold at 5.79. Again, these values are not far away from where they were during solar minimum, the heart of it. We saw TCI values from 3.0 all the way up to where they are currently. Now, this is still considered very cold. They do rise a lot farther during solar maximum, so we'll continue to watch that as well. But let's get over to a graphic I want to show you guys real quick on cosmic radiation. Because I thought it was interesting. I saw this on Twitter. That's not relevant. Sorry about that, folks. All right, here we go. So taking a look at this chart, this is over the last 30 or so years, 50 years, 1965. And let's take a quick look here, where we were cosmic radiation-wise. So as you can see, 5% or higher in some cases back here in 1965. All right. A lot of cosmic radiation, still very high, but not as high as where we are right now. Look at this. Also, I want you guys to pay attention to how long these cosmic radiation rates have been elevated for. Check out the 70s. You guys remember the great 78 blizzard? Well, we had a period of time where we had higher than normal amounts of cosmic radiation in the atmosphere. Again, 5% compared to where we are right now is totally different, completely different. But that was a long plateau for this period of time of cosmic radiation. So we started seeing things building up in our atmosphere back in the 60s and 70s. And then we saw a sharp increase and a sharp decline in the 80s. Didn't really sustain cosmic radiation that long. And then we started flirting with the idea of plateauing once again, but peaking only at 5%. And then you get to solar cycle 24, which is right here. And we see cosmic radiation rates very high for about a year. Okay? Here we are in solar cycle 24-25, where cosmic radiation rates are very high for now going on 3 years and plateauing. We're right about averaging 8.8% over the last 3 years. So compared to the 70s, when we had 5% average of consistency, and we all remember the Great 78 Blizzard, and something like this right here. And by the way, folks, check out the way this declined, the cosmic radiation dosage rates, not the same as it has in the past. Not only is it going up over each solar cycle, but the drop is not as deep as it was. So this means from really, if you look at this graph here, from 1991 until present, we have seen a huge increase of cosmic radiation in our atmosphere, which leads to more cloud nucleation, which leads to heavier precipitation, snow or rain. And we've seen a lot of record-breaking rain events and snow events really since the early 90s. We've seen some pretty big storms. I remember a really bad ice storm in 96 and 98. We've seen some historic events, but they've really jumped up over the last 10 to 15 years. And of course, it's making it easy for AGW to hijack the natural extreme weather events caused by our solar cycles and claim it as one of their own as man-made. But no, cosmic radiation dosage rates have been very, very high over the last several years. And right now in solar cycle 25, the plateau average seems to be about 8.5%. And that really has been going on since 2017. I don't see any end in sight. Here's 2017. We're still above those rates of 2017 and have maintained that now for around 3.5, almost 4 years. So lots of concern when you see stuff like this, and it makes you wonder, if we're seeing small drops here and small drops here, is solar cycle 25 going to be even smaller? Follow the trends, right? That's what AGW wants you to do. They don't want to look at the transition of a trend, but they'll still tell you to follow it. All right, so let's look at the KP indices. I think this is when our solar wind arrived from the CME that we are expecting today. By the way, there is a G1 storm warning and a 35% chance that we will see geomagnetic activity today. However, the G1 is very, very, very weak and nothing to worry about. But this is earlier today. The KP indices have since settled down. I'm not quite sure if we had the impact of the CME yet, but we are going to expect more action with our atmosphere, our magnetosphere, I should say, on October 12th and 13th as we have solar wind arriving from a coronal hole, and I'll go ahead and zoom in on that right here. This bad boy right here. This was actually Earth facing on our Friday show or Saturday show. I think it was Saturday or Friday. So we were expecting this to kind of maybe arrive at the same time with the CME, and that would possibly be enough to start a G2 storm. So we'll keep our eyes on the space weather because there's a lot happening. And with that increase in solar wind this morning, let's go ahead and check out really quick. You can see it clearly here on our graphs. This is the increase, and I believe this is responsible for what we saw today so far, and that is a strong shallow earthquake, a 6.9 that hits the Alaska Peninsula. Now, there was tsunami concerns at the beginning, Those have been canceled since, so there's no worries about that. But this was a strong and shallow quake registered by the USGS. Hit as a 6.5, downgraded it from a 6.9. This hit around 9 UTC time on October 11th. That was earlier this morning. And other reporting, EMSC is also reporting this, but at a 6.8 with a depth of 31 miles, a little bit shallower than what the USGS has reported. So far, there hasn't been any mention of damage or injury or death at this time. This is relatively a new situation, so we will keep you updated if there is any breaking news on this. But again, strong earthquake as we received a burst of solar wind earlier today as well. And that could be just the very beginning of the CME event. Now, with that being said, with solar wind speeds increasing possibly, and I can tell you since I started the show, it was at a 390 when I started. It was 380 before I updated it in the last 10 minutes. So let's check out, and it's kind of dropping back and forth right now. But so it's not clear if that was the CME itself that impacted earlier this morning and caused a sudden jolt in seismic activity. So we'll continue to watch, but right now it may appear that solar winds might be dying down, and if that's the case, that might have been our CME event this morning, but we still have solar wind to expect from that coronal hole that I just showed you as well. And then we had the 6.2 earthquake that hits near southwest coast of the island of Hawaii, and that was 3 hours prior to this strike. Again, I think these are in the same vicinity, and they correlate. Now, this earthquake happened first in Hawaii, and then let's actually, you know what? Let's just go ahead and we have USGS here. And guys, check out, not today, because Mari is still transitioning to our information on a new server. So I want everyone to check this website out when it's finished, because it's going to be a lot faster. But however, let's go back to today and check out our earthquakes that we've had and what time we had them. What happened first? UTC around 4 in Hawaii. Bear with me, folks. I'm acting like this is my first show. Okay. And then over here, this happened. Wow, this is saying the same time. 4 UTC? No. So 5:10, 4:20. So approximately about 50 minutes later, again, around the same time with the solar wind impacting our magnetosphere, we get 2 strong earthquakes. And like I said, we are watching now for the possibility of a G1 or a G2 magnetic storm. So, geomagnetic storm, I should say. Now, how strong is a G1 or a G2? Well, here is SPACEWEATHER.com. I love Dr. Tony Phillips, and this is one of the reasons why he's never really sensationalized space weather, and that's kind of where we are as well. But he wanted to put this in his article today. A direct hit by this cloud on October 11th could cause a geomagnetic storm. This is not the Carrington event. Likely, storm levels will reach only a G1 or a G2 on a scale that goes all the way up to a G5. Satellites and power grids will survive with ease, while auroras dance harmlessly in high-latitude skies. So again, folks, G1, G2 storms, this is solar minimum type geomagnetic activity still. And we're supposed to be really starting to see the sun kick it into gear. Now, we have seen more active regions, that's true. But it's taken a lot of active regions to get those sunspot counts up. So we'll continue to monitor that. But I thought it was important to show you guys that right around the same time with the increase of solar winds, we get impacts with 2 strong to moderately strong earthquakes. And they strike, unfortunately, near the U.S. Thankfully, there is no more tsunami concern or anything of that kind at the moment. All right, let's check out this winter storm warning in place now. We talked about this on Saturday. And here are the boxes for winter storm warnings. For what it looks like, Wyoming is going to get the worst of this. Denver and east, you're going to get mainly wind, but you're going to stay dry. And the bad news also with this is that further in front of this storm to the east, this low pressure storm will produce severe weather, and we'll go over that here just in a minute. But Once again, we're looking at storm warnings all over Wyoming, parts of southern Montana, and the far northeastern corner of Idaho. And watches now been issued across parts of Utah, and just advisories across the Rockies and Colorado, just west of Denver as well. What kind of snowfall are we looking? Well, they've kind of trimmed it down a little bit. 12 to 24 seems to be the heaviest with a low. Oh, I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. They did increase the local storm max, which could be 40 inches now. That has to be at a much, much higher elevation. It's not going to be on mainland or anything like that. These are going to be high elevations, 40 inches of snow. Still an impressive amount of snow for this time of year and how cold quickly it's going to be. But also you have to look at what it's going to do after this. And just to take a quick look at this cold air mass that's coming in here in the west, we're talking about 20 to 30 degrees below normal and 10 to 20 degrees below normal as well in a bigger swath. But remember, all the record-breaking heat that we had all summer out here, and we talked about how, well, where it's hot somewhere, it's cold somewhere else. So to see these temperatures swings, and let's think about this for a minute, because we always talk about GSM and the wild temperature swings. Obviously, this is over a bigger period of time, a couple of months. But remember, we were looking at temperatures that were well above average, and now we're looking at temperatures that are well below average. All I'm saying is that the weather does balance itself out. When it's really hot, it's going to be really cold. That's nature. And that's what we're seeing right now. So we're seeing a lot of the colder air right now in the west, which, again, most of the summers, they were suffering the most with the extreme heat that they had. And now they're going to be the first to experience a significant snowstorm and a very, very cold air mass moving in. Actually, let's do this real quick because I want to go touch base on this potential storm here. What we're looking at too, and this is important to me, we're in October and it's very heightened severe weather possible with this front right here. Now, this was yesterday's severe weather outbreak that we're looking at right now in the yellow right here. And that actually caused a delay in a football game last night for the Kansas City Chiefs. Lots of lightning, very big lightning, folks, to be in fact. But here's that low pressure system. This is going to change into severe weather as it moves along to the east, and I'll go over that in the GFS report here in just a bit. All right, let's go over to our friends at What's Up With That and analysis. Hurricanes have not gotten more intense or frequent over the past 170 years. In the latest climate and energy video by German site, media claims of increasingly stronger and frequent hurricanes are examined closely and reach the conclusion over the past 170 years, hurricanes have not occurred more frequently or have gotten worse. And, you know, that's kind of the thing that we've heard the most from AGW supporters out there is how much more hurricanes we're going to experience, the frequency, the intensity. And, you know, also we were told that lack of snow will be in our children's future, that the ice caps will be basically ice-free. That's not happening right now, is it? In fact, not only, let's check that out real quick. Well, actually, let's show you this. Look at this. Speaking of the ice, the dark blue is ice added here in the North Arctic from just a month ago, September 16th. And here we are, the dark blue. So all of this is covered in ice right now, but the dark blue shows you exactly what we've added in just 21 days. Zoom in on this real quick because this is important, guys. Again, Al Gore is telling us we're going to see more hurricanes, stronger hurricanes, and less ice. And it's only October. And we've already got ice filling up in here, which usually doesn't happen until closer to November. All right. More ice reaching across the Arctic Circle as we moved just, 21 days? That's a decent amount of growth here in the Arctic. But back over here talking about the frequency of hurricanes. Citing a new paper by Vecchi appearing in the Journal of Nature. Now, that's a scientific journal, folks. This is peer-reviewed stuff. This is not Guardian or any of the trash rag publications out there. This is actually a science journal. Changes Atlantic major hurricanes frequency since the late 1900s is the authors of this, or 19th century. And it goes in to talk about what we've seen. Hurricanes recorded before satellite observation started in 1972 was based on eyewitness observation, meaning a number of hurricanes before 72 never got recorded. That's important. That's important because when you look at the data and you see an alarmist trying to show you how much more hurricanes we've had right now since the 70s and before, now you know how biased that claim is. Because if this was reported on Eyewitness, they're right. If we didn't have satellite information back then, how would we know about the hurricanes that the Weather Channel loved to name that are out in the middle of the Atlantic and just spin out for 4 or 5 days and go away? We wouldn't. There's nobody in North Carolina that took a boat out to the middle Atlantic and then, through smoke signals back to the United States or whatever. That didn't happen. So again, without it being eyewitness, it didn't happen. So when you see people trying to compare data sets from today and what happened in 1965 and before, they're being biased and they're cherry picking the data. Because we don't, same thing with the CO2. We didn't have the equipment we had back then to measure the CO2 in our atmosphere like we do today. Everybody's like, why is that graph going straight up? What's going on? Well, they're splicing the data sets. They're showing you data that goes back all the way, to the 1,000, maybe, 0. So the last 2,000 years in data they show you of carbon dioxide emissions in ice cores, right? And then in 1850, things start to climb. I will admit, we started becoming more industrial. So yes, we were producing more emissions, but still, the amount that the man had contributed to the atmosphere still was very, very minuscule. And then, as you notice, as we get closer to the 1900s and 1960, that's when the CO2 numbers start really jumping up there. And then, of course, here recently, in the 90s and the 2000s, it's just going sky high. I'm here to tell you, folks, same thing that's going on with this hurricane information. They're splicing the data sets. In the hurricane field, they're using information saying that we have more today than we did back in the 60s and beyond because they didn't have satellite information. Okay? Same thing with the CO2 readings. You can trust ice core to a point. The thing about the parts per million of CO2 in the ice cores is that they don't know exactly what the atmospheric pressure is in that bubble where they're taking these samples from in these ice cores. So they're giving us their best educated guess by just testing it over and over and over again until they come up with a number that keeps showing up. And that's basically how science works. You're never satisfied with the results. You keep running tests until you find different results, and then you find out why you got different results. I mean, that's science. So same thing's happening with hurricane information like it is with CO2 information. Like I said, we have way more technology today to measure CO2, to measure hurricanes and identify them a lot quicker than we did back in 1972 and beyond. So I always find it amusing too when we watch the Weather Channel and they're always talking about we had 28 named storms already. Yeah, but about 26 of them had nothing to do with the United States and they kind of just faded away in the oceans. It's cherry picking. The number sounds like, oh, that's a lot. 28 storms, named storms. Wow, that's a lot. How many landfalls have we had this year? Henri, Ida. I think I might be forgetting one other. Nicholas. But that turned into a tropical storm before a hurricane. So, I mean, we've had 3 storms impact us this year. And the only one that had a major landfall was Ida. Nicholas turned into a tropical storm, and Hurricane Henri turned into a tropical storm as it made landfall in the East Coast. So, as you can see and tell, the frequency of these severity of these hurricanes is not changing at all. It's staying the same ever since, according to their data, from the early 1900s. Now, again, the numbers are very low in the 1860s and the 1880s and beyond because those storms were reported eyewitnesses. Interesting stuff, folks. It just goes to show that there's always someone trying to get the data twisted, trying to make it what it's not. And that's why we're here, folks. We want to help draw the conclusions and point you in the right direction on how they're manipulating their stats. All right, so let's go ahead and check out Mike's weather page real quick, because I wanted to show if there was anything to worry about hurricane-wise, and there's not. We are almost at the end of hurricane season, folks, and it does not appear that we're going to be affected by any kind of major hurricane activity. This is yellow. That's a very low chance for this time of year anyway. Waters will continue to cool. And like I said, we'll see a pattern change here in late October in the United States. So I'm not really too concerned other than what we have to deal with here, severe weather in the Midwest. And then we've got to watch the East real quick. And actually, I think one of our weather maps are probably going to also dictate that forecast as well. We'll switch over here to the weather maps. All right, so the weather maps don't want to work. There they are. All right, so there's our storm that's coming through in the west and the severe weather in the Midwest. I don't think we'll see as many tornadoes up north, but still be prepared. We've got some rough weather heading your way. Tomorrow, that storm moves further east, and then you see the severe threats now dropping to the central part of the United States. So more tornadoes possible here. We had tornadoes in here in Oklahoma and Texas just 2 days ago, and now parts of Oklahoma once again will be under threat. Kansas as well. And watch out to our friend there, Matt Brose of Nebraska, our farmer friend. Keep your eyes in the skies on Tuesday, October 12th. This storm continues to pile on the snow in the Rockies, but as this storm moves up to the northeast, it is not going to bring it across the central part of the United States, but it is going to bring some severe weather once again. And like I said, we've already had one severe weather outbreak just a couple days ago. And then one more chance for some heavy rain and flooding possible for Texas and Oklahoma into Arkansas as the snow starts to wind down a little bit here in the northern plain states. North Dakota, you should get some snow showers, maybe a dusting or an inch possible in some areas. Nothing major though, folks. The bulk of this snow is going to be here in Wyoming, parts of Montana, and that's going to be your heaviest accumulated areas for the snow on that. So let's go ahead and look at the extended GFS outlook as we always do. All right. Again, not too much crazy happening, but I do feel more confident about later this month. And also, there's that storm system that we were worried about for the 13th, way east of the East Coast. Thankfully, we will not have to deal with that. But I'm starting to feel a little bit more confident about the end of this month. Starting to show a true fall pattern and possibly a winter-like pattern in some states. But here's that snowstorm moving across the United States, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, parts of Colorado, and then the Dakotas as this thing moves out on Wednesday, October 13th. Now it is showing that there could be some significant snowfalls in South Dakota and then fading off to light showers by Thursday, October 14th. And then watch out Texas, all the way across central Texas. Heavy rain possible. They're not saying this is severe, they're just saying heavy rain possible. More snow showers for the Rockies by Friday, October 5th. This low pressure system races through the Great Lakes. So you guys are going to get your share of some weather here over the next several 5 to 10 days. And as that low pressure system moves across the Midwest into the Northeast, it's going to start bringing in a lot cooler weather behind it, folks. The Northwest still consistent with snow showers in the far parts of Oregon and Montana, also Alberta and BC, Canada. We'll continue to see off and on snow showers. And then a second shot of colder air coming in across the Great Lakes into the Northeast by the 21st of October. And yes, there is the possibility for some snow flurries in North Country of New York. Now, let's check out and see what that means temperature-wise here over the next several days. Nothing too impressive or crazy happening here as far as weather events other than this snowstorm that we're getting right now. After that, it's just going to be a typical pattern of rain and just raw fall weather, cold, chilly, and rainy. But let's take a look at our temperature outlook here in the next several days. This is today. Get out and enjoy it, folks, especially if you live in the Ohio Valley, in Pennsylvania, Virginia. Things are about to change here in a few days. There's that cold Arctic blast coming in the Rockies, bringing the snow, almost 40 inches in some elevations. By the time we get to Thursday, that cold front moving across the central part of the United States, cooling it off by Friday for much of the country. In fact, we're now looking at more than half of the country with temperatures below 75 degrees or lower. Some even states are going to struggle to get out of the 20s for daytime highs on Friday, October 15th. Overnight low temperatures getting even colder in the Rocky Mountain areas, and daytime temperatures not really improving much for most on Saturday, October 16th. And this is where I feel like this pressure right here, this could be the last hoorah of Indian summer-like warmth. And hey, I mean, it lasted till mid-October, so that's impressive. It definitely has been overperforming. I figured we would start seeing this weather in mid-September. So very surprised it went past what it did, but we're also starting to hear and see proof that this could be a really cold start to the winter as well, as temperatures continue to dip as we get into late October. Those were highs right there, folks. Yeah, not very warm anymore across much of the country. And then we get to later in the month, October 20th, once again, seeing another cold front move across the United States. Highs in the 50s for the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes area, and the Northeast, staying in the 60s for most of the country in the central part, even as far south as Mississippi and Arkansas, parts only reaching up to 68 degrees. So definitely after the 17th of October, we start to see some cooler air starting to filter in. Now, the jury is still out yet to see if there's going to be any more snow showers, especially in the Northeast. Like, I think there could be some snow flurries by the end of this month, especially by Halloween. But this could be an indication, folks, that this nice warm weather that we've had from September through now, enjoy it while you can, because I have a feeling that things are about to get rough really fast. And that's not good when you talk about energy prices being high right now. A barrel of oil was $82 at last check. Natural gas is at an all-time high. Coal prices are trading higher. And of course, we already know the administration is going to try to curb fossil fuel uses, so they're going to raise prices to keep people from using fossil fuels. But how are you going to stay warm this winter if it's going to be as rough as they say? La Nina is now really starting to kick into gear here, folks. Remember, we need that 3-month consistency around that threshold of 0.5 below baseline. Well, we're starting to see it dip even further in about a month of consistency of the 0.5 below baseline. Now it's starting to drop to 0.654. Again, consistency, we're heading in a direction of what I think could be a solid La Nina, adding to how cold and how much snow some areas could get. Again, we're expecting a cold weather in the Northeast, the Great Lakes area, Ohio Valley, parts of the, of course, Northern Plains, and the West and the Northwest as well. But we're not going to rule out those sudden cold snaps across the central part of the United States like we saw last year in Texas. With a weak polar vortex forecast as well, that will be a possibility once again for this winter. All right, guys, I'd like to go over to a volcano real quick, La Palma volcano, that is. We haven't talked about this much lately because things are starting to settle down. I noticed the SO2 levels on this have dropped almost more than 60 to 70%. Still impressive volcano eruption, but again, nonetheless, it was only a VEI2 and really has stabilized as far as the eruption status. We saw some impressive lava fountains, especially at nighttime. You can see this a lot better. But right now, we are just looking at a Kilauea type event where this is just a typical eruption in a weak one, and it's just basically adding to the landmass over there in that area. Before we go, I'd like to say hello to everyone in the chat. And Pisces, good to see you. Richard from New Mexico, glad you can make it. Hello, Julie. Edward, good to see you in here as well. Revolutionary Liberation, good to have you. Patricia, hello. Glad you're aboard as well. Seeing lots of new faces out there. And folks, listen up. Starting in November, there's going to be some big changes on YouTube where they will silence channels that talk about climate change not being caused by man. So what we're going to do on this channel is continue to report space weather news, grand solar minimum updates. However, we'll take the climate talk to our Patreon channel. And I want to thank everyone so far who's become a new member over at Patreon. And if you do subscribe to our Patreon channel, which is for as low as $1, we are bringing back the live Saturday night live call-in shows where you guys, the subscriber, if you're a Patreon member, can call in and ask questions of your choice of grand solar minimum. Now, also in the future, we'd like to bring in guests so you can ask our special guests, not just us, but, and yes, Mari will be with me as well for the call-in show. So it's not just me on this. You get to talk to Mari, and Mari is always constantly working in the background with our chats, with our websites, with all of our social media platform. Folks, I mean, there is so much going on. The relaunch of this channel in November is going to be amazing. But if you'd like to be a part of our call-in shows, we're starting those back up again. Saturday night at 9 p.m. We will air it on YouTube. It will be live on YouTube, but only a member of the Patreon channel will receive the phone number, so you will have access to call in and ask questions or just tell us about your plans on prepping and getting ready for the grand solar minimum. I also want to ask everybody to leave in the comment section, what is your favorite social media platform and why? Very important, because Mari is working very, very hard to make sure that when we go live on YouTube, that we simultaneously spread out to other social media networks as well. Folks, the message is simple here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. We're here to educate people on natural solar cycles and natural climate change. We want to show you the reason why that is unnecessary to create carbon taxes and other taxes that will raise the cost of living everywhere. As I'm showing you here, I don't think raising taxes will do anything to stop the sun, folks. It's going to do it for us today. Thank you for tuning in once again to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Take care, everyone. We'll talk soon.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.